Hello to everyone, and welcome to Chaos2Cured podcast. My co-host Jeffrey Freed is first of all a world-class individual, and when I say that, it comes from my own personal experience. One thing that makes this show fun is that he's one of the rare people that really made a massive impact on me when I was going through some really rough times. So the viewpoint that we both have shared, both from him being a mentor and helping me through some rough times, and then from his continued work. Please feel free to look at the show notes and always reach out if you have some questions. Of course, we both do speaking engagements and things like that. Today, we wanted to talk about a subject that absolutely affects all of us, and that is failure. So, Jeffrey, I would love for you to just jump in on this one because you brought this topic up, and I thought it was a phenomenal one to talk through.
I'll be glad to. I come from the perspective of someone who works pretty exclusively with visual spatial people who are smart, and a lot of them are on the spectrum, and they have intense senses. A good way to express this is something that Temple Grandin said. And she said that autistic people have all the senses that everybody else does, but more so. And that's it. It's like, and you don't have to be autistic to be this way. You can be, just a bright, highly sensitive individual. And if you're on the spectrum, it's going to be, your senses are going to be even more intense than if you're not. But one of the things I've noticed is so many of my students, and I've worked with a lot of people at this point. I've probably worked with 1,500, maybe even 2,000 different individuals. So I've seen everything at this juncture. And how these folks deal with non-success, or I guess a terrible word is failure. And my take on it is that nobody likes to try hard and fail. It's a lousy experience. Some of us have the ability to say, well, I've learned from my non-success and I'm moving on. Folks I work with don't think that way. Remember, their senses are hyper attenuated so that when they fail, try hard and don't succeed, they feel the same thing that everyone else does, only more so. And the effect can be so powerful. After a while, and especially you got to factor in something else, and that is if you're a right hemisphere dominant thinker and you have hypersensitivities, you are going to fail a lot because schools still, they think they're getting better. And I think they're a little better, but they tend to really work with the linear sequential type of intelligence because so many teachers who go, I mean, there's a lot of teachers who are visual, but most of them aren't. Most of them are linear sequential, and they don't understand how the right-brained visual spatial learner thinks. So what happens is they try, the young kids try to learn how to read, learn how to spell, and it doesn't work. And they know they're smart. They sense they're smart. Their parents have told them that they're smart, but all the evidence surrounding them suggests that, no, you're not. And the evidence is poor grades, late reading, can't spell anything, have trouble with rote stuff, can't do time tests. And it can feel like an assault on their feelings. They can get to the point where, I mean, most of them do. They get to the point where they say, I'm not trying anymore. And when that happens, it clashes with another strong desire, which is the desire to be the best, please your parents, please your teacher. So they're faced with a dilemma oftentimes. And the dilemma is, should I try hard and maybe this time it'll be different and I'm going to hurt a lot? Or can I just not try and it won't hurt as much because I haven't failed, because I haven't tried. Thus, what happens many, many times is the student is frustrated with themselves. They're frustrated with the system. They don't know what's going on. They think their parents have lied to them, and they can't verbalize it because so many of these students think in pictures. That's the essence of being a visual learner. You think in images. And what happens is you have trouble, or at least a delay, transferring those images into the right words. And what happens is they just act out. And amongst autistic kids, who are usually the most visual spatial of all, and have vivid imaginations and think in images and have powerful sensory things, they can't verbalize. They can't think of the right words. They can't get it out. The only way they can express themselves is through a tantrum or other ways like ritualistic behavior or avoidance. Nobody really knows where that's coming from. And it's coming from, like I used the term before in another podcast we did, inarticulate rage. They can't express it. No one will understand, even if they try. They don't know what's wrong. The only way they can express themselves is through behavior. And I work with so many of these students, and there's some real specific things I tell their parents and their teachers. But the most important thing is to identify what is actually happening, which I hope I just did.
Oh, it was really well stated. And,
Thank
you know, well, thanks for, laying it out there and really, I'm trying to put words onto what I feel. So there were a couple things that you touched on that I wanted to get to, like thinking in pictures. One thing is I tend to have a hard time. People can look this up. It's kind of fun. It's called the Apple test. You close your eyes and you imagine, somebody just says, imagine an apple. And then there's like, there's, I think, 6 different ones. But one of the options is not seeing anything. You can't picture it. I know what an apple looks like. I can draw it. I'm actually a great artist. But if I want to describe something, I don't do it very well just with words. So you're describing like that inarticulation. If if someone puts a computer down in front of me and I type it, it's much easier for me to type and describe even. I think that's what makes me a good writer. I think I do think in pictures, but instead of having pictures, I kind of need correlations, like with numbers. I am very good at remembering numbers, and there's one particular time, and again, that was just one thing that you said that I think is really important for people to understand. It is very frustrating when you're trying to express feelings that you don't understand, and that is, I everyone goes through that, no matter what you are, who you are, what you're dealing with, what your mental health diagnoses might be or might not be. And I think when we can't figure out what's wrong, we take it out. And Jeffrey, I love that term, inarticulate rage. And it's something I've watched with, a close family member. It's very hard, and it's hard on everyone's heart to watch when there's kind of this meltdown and you don't understand why there's a meltdown. And I just was having this discussion. We are very proud of my eldest niece, who is on the spectrum. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with, being there, or who she is. And when she had this kind of meltdown coming from school, what I texted to my sister was, you just have to listen. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to things like failure, I don't like that word either, and we can address that in a minute. But when it comes to failure, you don't really want to admit that you did. You certainly don't want to let down your family. And I could tell instantaneously she didn't want to let anyone down, that she was even struggling at all. Even, remote failure. So a 99 instead of a 100 is absolute catastrophe for her.
Mm.
And it's not because of the grade. It's because she feels that she'll let us down. And it's a fear of almost like we're going to abandon her, or we're not going to keep continuing to love her. And so one thing that, it when you see how much some of these individuals struggle, and I did too, I didn't want to try. And you
Yep.
said that because it was easier than I would have to also face myself. So if you don't try at all, if you face yourself, you don't have to actually admit that you might have struggled, because you can just actually create the illusion, oh, it would have been easy for me. I didn't try. And I
Yep.
think that's one of the other reasons.
That's face saving behavior. And
Exactly.
all my students have that. I don't care. It's like it's so universal at this point with all of the students that I work with, that I just know going in that that's the way they're going to be. And I want to add something to what you said too. It's to try hard and fail. Again, nobody likes it. But when you have an individual who is bright, hypersensitive, and failure to them is devastating. And they love when they succeed. They bask in it. They want to be number one. And that's a strong human characteristic, especially amongst bright people. They want to be the best. They want to please themselves. They want to please the significant others in their life. And then they can't, or they feel they can't. So the most important thing to do is, if you can, and this is constructive, is we've identified it, but what can you do about it? One of the things you can do about it as a parent and or a teacher is absolutely take the effort, the impact on the results, move them from the results to effort. Like if my child were to come to me and act devastated because they got a 65 on a time test and they had 100% knowledge, what I would do is say, did you try? And they said, yeah, I did. Well, that's what matters. And constantly praise them, bribe them, do whatever you can, but make certain that they're faced with lots and lots of reward for trying. That will slowly, if you start it early enough, it'll work. If you start it later, it'll work. Not as well, but it'll work. And that's the strategy that works. Take the emphasis off the grade, or don't even worry about it. If your kid is trying, your kid will be successful eventually. And these children who are bright and visual, they're going to bloom later. That's the thing that happens. They don't read early. They may be gifted, brilliant, but they're not going to probably read at age 5 like neurotypical children do. If they're dyslexic, it could be as late as 8 or 9, or even later than that. Because what they do is they end up memorizing their vocabulary, because they do have great memories, especially visual memories when they're attending. But don't, it's like, don't panic. Because another thing these children do is they read their parents even better than neurotypical kids do. And if you're disappointing them, if you're working with them and they're not getting results and you get frustrated, they know it. And then they shut down. And
Oh,
I've
they
done
feel
that.
guilty. They
Yeah,
feel
and they shut
guilty.
down. And when they shut down, all they can come up with is name, rank, and serial number. I've been in that shutdown mode. Parents, when I was a young boy, I couldn't learn my times tables. And my father would just get so frustrated trying to teach me. And I could pick up him thinking, what is wrong with this kid? Is he stupid? And then I shut down. I went blank. And things got worse and escalated. And the parent may think that the kid's not trying. My God, if you really knew what was going on, how much this child wanted to be successful, feel proud of themselves and please you, and the frustration, which again is attenuated by the realization that their senses are more intense than most people's, then you would feel compassion for them. And if you knew that they're going to read, I mean, even severely dyslexic people eventually read. It's just going to take longer. And in terms of time tests, they're not going to be able to do them most likely. They may know this stuff, but they can't produce it under the pressure of time. And, don't worry about it. There's so much evidence. And of course, I think this because I've worked with so many people like this. They all read, they all learn math, and they're probably better if they're not scarred by criticism, self-criticism, teacher criticism, and parent criticism. They're going to be fine. And this kind of clashes with a common not realization, it's a terrible word, with a common fallacy. It's a belief fallacy that you need to catch this stuff early or it's going to stain your kid forever. That is not true amongst bright visual spatial dyslexic students or autistic students. They'll get it, but they'll get it later. And there's specific reasons for that. And I can't make anyone believe that unless you trust me in the fact that I've worked so successfully with that many people over the amount of years that I've done it. I hope some people will get that.
Oh, I definitely think they will. I mean, it's hard to realize, how common a lot of this is. And a lot of it goes unnoticed not because of a lack of care. So you have a lot of people that shout the parents aren't working hard enough, or the teachers aren't doing enough, or the government isn't giving enough, or yes, there's a whole bunch of different places where people can place blame. But what I have found is almost every single person is trying. The issue is, and one thing that I did love that you said, is that if your child continues to try, they will be successful. That is absolutely vital to hear. As a parent, dealing with a child who might be more difficult, maybe they're not diagnosed, maybe they're just, going through some rough times at school, however it starts, if they continue to believe in themselves and continue to try, they will find success. It's only when we give up that it becomes a problem. So that was really elegantly said, Jeffrey. So thank you for that. I really wanted to bring attention to that. The second part, with everyone trying hard, there's not a way to address all the different learning styles. There's really not a way to, be able to catch these individuals. But the people they care about the most, and I think the people any of us care about the most, are the ones that love us, or the ones that we want. Like you said, how hard we all try to please, individuals, not just ourselves. And then when we don't make it, that feeling of a lack of value, that is something that I felt for so long. And I also felt guilt, tremendous guilt for the, money I cost my family. And,
Very interesting.
yeah, medically, I mean, I knew that, seeing that, a particular psychiatrist, each one that I was seeing, some of them were like, $600 an hour. I knew. I watched my mom write a check, and I knew she had no money for herself. Every time I saw that, I felt guilt. I actually wanted to try harder to get better. The effort was endless. I was trying. In school, so many things came so easy to me, and I was just absolutely bored in some things, and I couldn't maintain focus. And the moment I was scolded or rewarded, and again, I'm not advocating rewarding bad behavior. And I liked what you were saying, like focus on the effort. What I do with my uh, any of the individuals I work with is my victory is always in my preparation. So like what I tell definitely when I'm dealing with performance, right? The perfection is in the preparation, not the performance. The
Good.
goal, and the reason I say that is because we tie so much to a specific result, and when we're going up in front of people or we're doing something, a mistake, the other thing I just feel is important for people to kind of understand and utilize is the word mistake is negative. It's technically a neutral term because we don't take it that way. We still see it as negative. But
Yep.
I try to explain to people that a mistake is data. So I like to just talk about things objectively. It's easier for me. If you take data, if we use that properly, it becomes something good. If we don't utilize it or we use it negatively, it becomes something bad. It's ours to do with what we want. So for me, anytime we focus, like you said at the very beginning, Jeffrey, the word failure is just loaded with emotion and it's all negative. There's
Yeah.
nothing good about that word. And that feeling when we do feel like we fail is, overwhelming. It did lead me to definite times where, I was pretty stable and it kind of cracked me back down into a depression. Those things were powerful enough. It really made an impact. The other thing is it leaves lasting scars too. A lot of times, if you feel like you're continually failing and then it's pointed out again and again and again,
Yep.
and then you're trying again and again and again, then you, first of all, and this happened to me personally, don't value yourself. So when you don't value yourself, then everything else falls apart. Like your friendships, your relationships, your jobs, everything does. Because, and hygiene, there's a lot of things. Um, that's actually traumatic for me to even think about and talk about because it was hard. So I kind of lost track of where I was going because of that. So
Yeah.
Jeffrey, you want to respond? Jump in
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Let me throw this in too. Um, People who are non-neurotypical or who are neurotypical, they have they can have strong emotions, but they're not gonna. Their emotions aren't going to be that exaggerated as anywhere near like the people that I work with. And they're the kind of people that can can try something and fail, and because it's not so devastating, they're going to learn from their mistakes. Many of the people I work with, the failure is just what you experience. They get this overwhelming feeling of rejection and letdown that isn't rational, but it's still there. And they don't learn from the experience. And if you bring back and say, well, let's try it again, what they go into is the feeling, the negative feeling of failing. So they seemingly are unable to learn from their mistakes. That's not all of them, but that's a lot. That's a very, very prevalent reaction, and it's all based as what you implied, if not just outright said. Their self-image goes down. They think that they're unworthy. The parent can sit there, the teacher can sit there, and they can say over and over again, "You are smart," but the evidence to the child is, "I can't be smart. They're just telling me that to make me feel better." And that's so deeply entrenched. So I'm going to say this again ad infinitum, but I do believe this, and all, my core is, if you can somehow lessen that or change the emphasis from results to effort and reward them and applaud them, let them have extra game time, whatever it takes, when you feel that they tried, even if it's just a little more than the last time, because they're so sensitive, they're going to start associating effort with reward. That could change the whole schemata. And then they start, well, if I try, I'm going to get rewarded. And that's what you want. You want to change that negative, powerful feeling of failure and I'm a piece of crap and all that stuff to, if I try, I will get rewarded. I can't emphasize that enough, obviously. But it's one of my deepest beliefs. And if we do that and the kid has some self-esteem and tries, he or she will be successful. They will be successful. And at least they will keep trying. Another thing that is impactful in this discussion is that these visual spatial right hemisphere dominant autistic type children are basically what they call holistic learners. They need to know why they're learning something in order to learn it. They can't seem to learn stuff in a vacuum. They got to say, what am I learning this for? How does it fit? And that's always in the background. It's always there. And so much of our childhood education is, you need to learn it because I'm telling you to learn it. Later on, you'll when you're smart enough and old enough and mature enough, we'll tell you why you're learning it. Doesn't work. So another strong recommendation when working with these folks is to tell them how it fits in, what the final result will be. If you do that, they can learn stuff easier. That's a big one. Nobody really knows that either. I mean, they may know it intellectually, but they don't know how it plays out in the real world. And if teachers and parents can explain why they're learning their times tables, why they're learning how to sound words out, which, well, I'm not going to go into that, and why they're doing stuff, then they can do it. And
They'll want to.
Neurotypical people don't need to know why they're learning something. They just know that if they want to please the teacher, they think in steps anyway, and they trust the process of thinking in steps. And the education is made for these folks. It eventually, if the right hemispheric students that I work with have any self-esteem left, they can be remarkably successful. And that's another thing you want to do is you want to point up all these brilliant, dyslexic, autistic individuals who are changing the world and read them excerpts from anything you can find biographical information about Edison, Einstein, Bill Gates, so many other people, Churchill, General Patton, William Yates, who struggled early, but really, really stuck it out and eventually became world changers.
Oh yeah, definitely outliers. And I I kind of wanted to jump back to one thing, you kind of had an emphasis in, oh, I can't even talk today. I'll fix it later, but emphasis, there we go. So on a couple points, one, definitely the effort, what matters. I know there's going to be some people out there that will, bring up the point, oh, we don't want to just reward people or constantly for unneeded effort or unneeded success. I did want to state, like, there is, every single individual I work with has a different set of skills and potential. So I judge each individual differently. So when Jeffrey, I'm guessing when you're saying, reward them for their successes, you're talking about big milestones, which we can all see, and of course are going to be balanced with each individual. So it's not just rewarding, of course, if somebody's not meeting their potential, it's for the effort. And I like that one. And then the other thing was, would you repeat that one more time? The second thing you had brought up.
The stuff about, I think what you're referring to is the stuff I talked about holistic learning. Is that what you need?
Yeah.
Holistic learners have this deep underlying need to know why they're learning, why they need to learn how to do something.
Perfect. Yep.
If they see the end result or where they're attempting to go, it makes sense and it clicks. Neurotypical people don't. They basically they've learned early that if you follow the steps, you get rewarded. So follow the steps. And educational system is geared towards those types of people still. Another quick aside that I think is really worth jumping into is that as teachers, and I'm a teacher and you're a teacher, we tend to teach like we would like to be taught or we were taught. So if we're neurotypical, we just have nothing but positive associations with learning and with school, and we want to spread that to other people. And when we run across these people that we know are bright, we've been told they're bright, we see evidence of it, but it's not reflective in performance, then what happens is we tend to get irritated. We may not show it on the surface, but we are. The kid picks it up and they think, I can't please them. They don't like me. I don't like them. And they shut down. I see that all the time. So it's really important to get this stuff out in the open. That's the most important thing. And then to try and change it. If you're a parent listening to this, if you can understand what your kid is going through and what is actually occurring, you can understand it and then you can impart it to their teachers, friends, whatever. It's so powerful just to identify it and understand it.
Oh, absolutely. And you were spot on. I always needed an answer. If I had a good reason to learn something, it was far easier. If the worse the response I received in terms of how good or valid the reason was to learn it, the less I would work. And a lot of times they would not give an answer. A lot of times the teachers thought I was trying to waste class time.
Yeah.
By asking that question. And so for any teacher listening, a lot of times there are, of course, students, I'm fully aware that do ask questions to waste time. But a lot of times if it's something that has to do with the structure or why something is being done, why something is being learned, if you have a really solid answer for that, there is a large demographic that will respond to that. I'm definitely one of those. That really hit me. So well described. This was a phenomenal talk. I might want to do a follow-up on this particular topic. I think it's a powerful one. Thank you to everyone listening. We really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, and like I said at the very beginning, if you have any questions or needs that we can answer directly, please reach out. You can see them in the show notes and at the base of like Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that. So thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to Chaos2Cured podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with everyone you know. And definitely like, follow, and subscribe. Certainly leave a comment if you'd like. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about the next time. Also, in our show notes, there should be direct links where you can follow us on our social media, as well as reach out to us directly. Thanks again, and have a great day. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on Chaos2Cured podcast are the speaker's own. All discussion is based on our own experiences. We do not and cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information. Chaos2Cured podcast cannot give medical or health advice. all discussion is based upon our personal experiences and meant for general and educational purposes. This podcast is not a substitute for professional help or for diagnostic purposes for yourself or another. Chaos2Cured podcast always encourages you to consult an appropriate professional.